Hi guys, this is Kunal and we are shooting yet another vlog of Conversation Corner. I have with here friend of mine Siddhant who I just met today. We were talking a lot about being in our late 30s or crossing 25 and understanding the importance of hard work and ambition. But Siddhant, I want to bring something very interesting in today's podcast, which is serendipity or luck. We met today itself, right?
Yeah,
Through a
we
common
just
friend
met.
of ours called Manish.
Yeah.
And you had some other work over there, and ultimately you came here. Were you aware that you're going to be asked to record podcasts with
No,
me today?
this is supposed to be awkward silence, right? Not a straight friend. It's not. We're talking.
Exactly,
We're making a podcast.
exactly. So today we talked about as a man how we sometimes really work hard towards the things we want. However, this podcast is happening spontaneously to a large extent, although it was planned by Manish and me. Manish got a friend over, and for Siddhant, something interesting is taking place for which he had never even planned. So, Siddhant, knowing that all of a sudden you are shooting a podcast today with someone who's almost nearly a stranger, and yet the experience is quite interesting. How important do you think it is to be really open in life as opposed to being conscientious and directing where you want to go?
I do believe you can't plan everything in life. There are certainly situations where you're put in by life, which are completely alien to you. And it's better to be open because if you are, you get to experience those moments. If you're not, you basically are a bystander.
Correct.
And being a bystander, you can experience it second hand, but then it depends. If I didn't have an answer for this question, I would rather prefer being a bystander than listening to someone, probably learning, and I would still probably I could do that even now. Like if there's someone else who has a better answer for this, I would love to do that, but since I'm already in this situation, I'll play along.
So this interview or this vlog or podcast or whatever people would like to title happened without a certain sense of planning, right? Something occurred through serendipity, and now we're shooting it. We don't even know how many views this is going to get, whether it'll get enough likes or enough comments. But as we're shooting this, we're discussing something very interesting. So coming back to the topic of planning versus staying open for new experience, where does someone find the right balance between planning what needs to be done versus pivoting and understanding the changing nature of things and being open to new experiences to gather more data?
Entirely depends on the individual and
Okay.
his energy levels in that moment. Let's say I basically worked night shift, came here having a coffee crash. I wouldn't be open to this one.
Okay.
Right now I'm well rested. It's a Saturday afternoon, so yeah, it makes sense. And you're a pretty cool dude. You've been nice to me, so great. I'm open to a conversation. It's happening.
So, guys, one very important thing we need to keep in mind as you grow up, especially if you grow up Indian, right? You tend to meet new people through existing connections. Very rarely are you open to the idea of meeting someone who's a complete stranger through no interrelated activity. But as you know, when you grow in life, although your skill sets do play an important role, I think being in touch with the right people opens up a lot of opportunities for you that you would be unaware of just purely on the basis of your skill set. So what do you think about that?
I do believe that. I remember, when I was in New Zealand, I was there. In my first job, the first job that I got over there as a student was basically working in a store. And
Okay.
at a store, I got to meet. Initially, I was really closed, right? I never really opened up and spoke to people. I was an introvert. But slowly, I started talking to people, listening to their stories, and interacting with everyone who came in. And the world of opportunities opened up for me.
Could you give us an example?
I was there. My core skill is basically photography, and I make videos. And just talking to a person over there, I suddenly met a musician who had come in to buy a bottle of milk. And having a conversation with him, I found out he's a guitarist, and he was an ex-rock star. I can't name him right now, but he wanted to create some videos, some podcasts, and he was trying to try out different venues. And then I ended up gelling with him, going over to his place, and we started planning out, charting out the course of action for his new content that was supposed to be created. And yeah, so like being open, talking to people always does open up like new avenues, new portals to opportunities.
Now you say that this event took place in New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
In a country like ours in India, where we are told that the roadmap to success is following a certain path that is predefined and continuing on it, we somehow believe that we can pull ourselves up solely by the merit of our own actions, our own skills, and somehow in this thought pattern, we forget the role of serendipity and luck, and of course, other people of all. What would it take for an Indian to deconstruct this belief that his success is not his alone, but the network of people he or she knows?
I don't know if it's true for everyone. Like, there are people who acknowledge their teams. There are people who have done that. I mean, at least I don't know if it's serendipity in this case. I've met a lot of people who are having a lot of gratitude, or maybe I just tend to take my meetings forward only when I see those qualities in people.
Okay.
I tend to work with those kind of people. So I have successfully, being an introvert, I've avoided a lot of toxic clients. Like it cut them off initially, like the cancer first stage, you're just out.
Okay.
So,
You mentioned or you self identify as an introvert, right? What do you see is behaviorally different between you and an extroverted person?
if I put my thoughts out there instantly without pondering on it for a long time, they tend to be half baked.
Okay.
Right, so I need to stay with them for a long time, ponder upon things, re-cook the thoughts, let
Okay.
it cook.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
once that is done, then I put it out there. Then it's basically something of value for someone else who's listening to it. Otherwise, if I'm going extempore the way I am right now, I'm really afraid I might say something wrong. I don't have to follow it. So yeah, so that's one thing. I think that is where the introverts become a lot more careful, a lot more conscious about what they're saying.
Okay. So, do you think one element of being an introvert is being risk averse? And do you think that can negatively affect you in terms of not taking certain risks because you want everything planned out correctly before it's executed?
Yeah, probably. Yes. But again, not introverted in every activity.
Okay.
You're introverted and probably into these social situations, but when it comes to my work, I'm probably extroverted over there. I'm very open about. You're more prepared over there.
Okay.
In the situations where you're unprepared, that's where you're introverted.
Okay, okay. And what do you admire about people who are extroverted? And is there an aspect or the quality of their being that you would like to absorb?
Yeah, I mean, I think extroverted people are a lot more free when it comes to expressing themselves.
Okay.
I've seen people who just start singing anywhere in public, and they even if their voice isn't good,
Okay.
but you see them, they're in a different zone altogether. They're high on life. They're high on life, and there's a flow in their nature. So that's
Okay.
pretty great.
Do you think this whole concept of introversion, extroversion has to do with socializing, or does it have to do with what your core passions are? For example, I have had it said to me that you're not interested in people, you're interested in the subject of conversation. And people have noticed something about me that when I talk about things that are very interesting to me, my eyes light up, right? And at that time, I can be the most talkative person in the room. So, do you think that being an introvert comes from not having these topics to talk about, or just not being as social?
No, I think you have a lot of topics to talk about, or it could also come from being very social when you were younger, but having bad experiences socially. Or it could also probably come from the other way, you're not having enough topics to talk about. That could be
Okay.
it. But you are probably assimilating a lot of topics right now. You're not there at a point where you're ready to talk about it yet. Depends on that. Yeah.
Okay, so guys, it's essentially about understanding yourself and seeing who you are. But one very interesting point I have to put, Siddhant, about knowing who you are is you cannot conclude who you are, because even when this conversation will be over, you will be a different person, although you cannot perceive to what extent you will be different, right?
I don't know that ever. I don't know what I'll be 1 second from now.
Exactly. No, what I want to try and get at is change. is perceived only when looking behind over a long time period. For example, when we see a sapling grow to a tree, between 2 seconds or between 2 or 3 hours, it is the same. And each time, certain number of hours are passing, but it's only on one particular day after months that you see, okay, this is something different. So when we're talking about self-awareness, every time we try to journal or write down our experiences, what we don't realize is an event is already taking place which is conditioning your new self, which will get reflected in your journal only maybe 2 to 3 days later, right? So, how do you build self awareness knowing that whenever you're looking at your thoughts or whenever you're journaling, you are taking the snapshot of an event that has passed? And basis that you're concluding certain things, you're making certain decisions. How do you be self aware knowing that? Yes, I need to take the right action in the moment as opposed to waiting for the moment to pass and evaluate what happened.
Done enough random things, you know the kind of accidents it leads to. Like, probably let's take the easiest thing like a diet. If you're not conscious about it, you're eating randomly. Like, you know how basically, like, you know, you can let yourself go and, like, you know, how negatively it affects your life.
Correct.
Planning things out does help. Being consistent on the plan that you have planned does help. Like, you know, you become fitter and you see the results. You basically, like, you know, you form a timetable and then you live according to it, and it does sort of bring in a lot more stability to your life.
Okay.
So yeah, I've seen that, and then that's probably the reason why I basically prefer, like, you know, not being random, in spite of like having such volatile thoughts and, like, you know, just moving like an electron from one place to the other. Like, people call it ADHD. I don't know, probably that's it. But yeah, I prefer, like, you know, consciously putting it on paper. Like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do today.
Okay. So when we cross our 20s, when we enter the workspace, when we don't have the luxury of a college or school to build our social circle of friends, what part of making new connections or new friendships is conscious and what part of it is purely luck?
I don't think you should try too hard in that area.
Okay.
I don't think it's something you try and achieve, like, you know, friendships and all that. Like, I think you should be very organic, very real, and you'll just vibe with your tribe. Like, you know, you'll find your tribe. You'll find people who are, you know, alike you, and then you do have to, like, you know, be open to experiences that, you know, they give you, like, you know, probably their worldview. And then unless it's, like, you know, dramatically different than yours, I think you will, like, you know, find a common ground and you'll enjoy the activity.
Okay. So you would steer more on the direction of letting life flow and take you wherever you go with that? Would that be the right way to put it about?
There's a quote I heard from someone. I heard some. I've heard some. There was a MotoGP racer or something. I guess I've heard him say it, like, going out of control with control.
Okay.
You know, so basically you let yourself flow, and at the right moment you control yourself and to, you know, shift directions or whatever. Like, you know, so there's a lot more. There's a
Nuance.
you know, your life is more in a flow than you know. You don't live in hesitation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially, what we may be talking about, Siddhant, is having an understanding of life that is a little higher than the psychological realm, rather than at an existential realm. Let's say if there is a cut on my hand, it heals itself, and that is an intelligence that is not psychological.
Yeah, exactly.
So aligning ourselves to that higher intelligence, which is not mind,
Yeah.
is essentially what we're all trying to do in order to live a life free of unnecessary stress. The stress is going to be there, but in order to stay harmonious with life's rhythm as it is, somehow we'd have to touch that dimension that is not mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's it. So, like, disassociating yourself with the regular stuff, like, you know, with the traditional stuff that has been imposed upon you, and then actually questioning, you know, what is it? Like, you know, what am I all about? What am I? You basically question your thoughts. You question everything that is impermanent within you, and then you see it from a distance. You start to look at things, trying to find answers to things which are almost mystical, which even science doesn't have an answer to.
Okay. And can that site take place in the absence of content?
I think it can. I think it can take place even if you're like alone in a jungle. It could take place. There are so many. It's the most fundamental thing according to me. It's life, life within you. Life is there within you, and then you don't have any basis for it. You don't know how it has come into existence. Yeah, you know the biology of it. You know the hardware of it. You don't really know how the life has come. The wandering just happens.
So, are you saying that being human, it would be possible to a great extent to remove our cognitive biases?
Socially, in the world, like external world, no, but you do have an internal, world within you,
Correct.
So for that, you don't really need the cognitive biases. In fact, the lesser the biases, the better, because you'll be able to, really understand things more openly. You won't be stuck in beliefs. You'll see what works.
So, are you implying that after you do enough internal work, you will have the confidence to live without frameworks and blueprints?
No, you'll know their place. You'll know where they are needed. You'll not carry it beyond a point. Like, let's say somebody says something to me right now, and this identity of Siddharth is hurt by it. I will not let that identity be hurt beyond a point because ultimately, even that is not permanent.
Correct.
That's something I'm wearing right now. That is something that is externally given. So eventually, I'll know when to drop things, when to keep things, I'll know how to use everything around me. Even though it sounds very evil, I'll know how to use everything around me at a certain amount of time.
Okay. I wouldn't say use in this sense would be evil. You would know the right place of things
Yeah.
rather than removing or adding
You know
things.
what is
Right?
needed. Yeah. What is needed to be done.
Okay. So this was quite fun. I think this was completely unexpected for you, but still, even
I
though
was not ready for this. You can see I'm sort of revolting internally, but then I have to sit here and talk.
I did mention it to him that sorry, you are literally back to a corner if we can even say it geometrically. So guys, be open to certain experiences in your life. It's great to have plans, but sometimes if you know that there is a time and place in your life to drop your plans to, something really good can emerge, and I think that's how you can take your social networks ahead. So enjoy this video, share it with someone, and let him or her know to do something unscripted this weekend. Have a great day.